Hey guys, it's M4J here, and welcome back to the Majeffries Network here on OpenTTD. Today we are building the third rail line between Bahecity and Drentborn Retire. I always get it wrong. And then we're building the third rail line between Drentborn and Hartberg. So we're finally connecting Bahecity to the rest of the network, essentially, via the line that still hasn't been named yet. Which is down by Tarnway and Funstone, and also where it goes past Cadingbury and then heads up into Guard City St Mark. Started really well in this episode, then I lost a bit of momentum there. I do apologise for that. I've got some stuff to talk about though. I have a correction that I would like to make first of all. I can't remember when it was, because I've recorded all these episodes slightly out of order. In terms of, I've recorded all the footage consecutively. No, what's the word I'm looking for? In chronological order. That's the one. I recorded all the footage in chronological order, but the audio, because some of it's time lapse, some of it isn't. All the audio is a bit out of whack. So, some episodes ago, I was talking about Eurostar introducing services to Amsterdam, and I said something about there were no direct trains, blah blah blah. Can't remember exactly what it was, but I know it was wrong. Now I've actually read the article during the day and not at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was when I was recording that particular episode. I've realised my mistake. So what it is at the moment is you can get a train directly from London St Pancras International to Amsterdam Central. I mean, obviously it stops along the way. It stops at Brussels and I think it stops at Lille. I think that's the other stop. Apart from that, it's a direct service. You get on the train in London, you get off it in Amsterdam. And that's because the French immigration services at St Pancras are also being used for the Dutch immigration services. I don't know the full ins and outs of it. I just know that there's passport control and stuff that you have to go through. And the French side have offered to do it for the Dutch as well. So you can get on a train in London, you can get off in Amsterdam. However, on the way back, you have to get on the train at Amsterdam to Brussels Midi, where you then change. So you get on a Thalys train, from Amsterdam to Brussels, where you change then, you go through immigration as if you were getting on a Eurostar from Brussels to London, and then you can get the train back. So currently there are direct services from London to Amsterdam, but not from Amsterdam back to London, and that's where I made the mistake. So that's the first thing. It was a correction. Second thing I want to talk about is the end of Electrostar, and I've put that with a question mark at the end. So as we all know now, there are no new Electrostar trains being built. For those of you who don't know what the Electrostars are, think of the Class 377s, the 387s, the 487s as well, I think. There's a whole host of trains. The new Thameslink trains that aren't the Desiros, the ones that were used on Thameslink before the... are they Desiros? I suppose they are. The Desiro Cities, the Class 700s. The trains that are now used on Great Northern services that were previously used on Thameslink services and First Capital Connect services. Also the new trains, the new electric trains that are now on Great Western Railways, the suburban ones, not the express ones. We'll come to the express ones in just a second. And also some new trains that are on C2C and other lines like that, Greater Anglia as well. They're Electrostars. We know they're not making them anymore. They've been replaced by the Aventras, which are going to be used on... Again, I'm trying to remember. I think Great Northern have got some on order, but Greater Anglia definitely do. C2C do. London North Western do, and West Midlands Railway. London Overground, Crossrail, obviously. Loads of trains, loads of train operating companies are getting Aventras. And that's what I mean by, is this the end of the Electrostars? Because actually some of the Aventras are coming in to replace Electrostars, and with no new electrification schemes going on at the moment, apart from the ones that have already been started, could this be the end of the Electrostars? I think it's a massive shame if that turns out to be the case. I mean, you know my opinion on getting rid of trains that are practically new. I've said it many times before. I think it is this knee-jerk reaction of companies that bid for franchises. They always promise extra seats, more trains, things like that. And instead of just getting additional stock to supplement what they've already got, the companies at the moment seem to be doing like a complete overhaul. So Greater Anglia is a great example. they've actually got some pretty decent trains there. They got the really old ones like the 321s and the 315s and the 317s. Fair enough, they're old. They were built in British Rail days. You can scrap them fine. But they're replacing the entire fleet, which also includes the Electrostars. And they're being replaced with Aventras, and also the Stadler Flirts as well, to be fair. But this could be the end of the Electrostars, which I think would be a bit of a shame. I've never ridden on that many Electrostars in my life. 2 or 3, I think. And that's only in recent years because they've moved on to the Great Northern line. Discord is going off in my ear for some reason. I think I'm having connection problems. Hopefully that's not being picked up on my microphone. But yeah, the Electrostars. It's a real shame if that turns out to be the case, because I quite like the Electrostars. I say I've never ridden on them personally, apart from in and out of King's Cross maybe 2 or 3 times. But as a train, they're pretty nice. They are pretty nice. They do the job very nicely, and of course the Aventura is an upgrade still. But there you go. Yeah, I've got connection problems. That's why Discord's going off. Oh, that's really annoying. I'm sure you guys can't hear it, but it keeps sounding in my ear. Really, really frustrating. I might have to do a forced shutdown of that. Anyway, I digress. The IETs. That's another good thing to talk about. Actually, no, before we talk about that, let's talk about number of new rail vehicles coming to Britain, which is something else that I have on my list of things to talk about. I'm going to do a forced shutdown on Discord because it's driving me mental. Alright, Task Manager. Before, or while I'm doing that, I should say, let me talk to you about number of new rail vehicles coming to the UK. So as I've already said, there's loads of Aventuras that are currently being built, the majority of which, if not all of which, are being built up at Bombardier's factory up in Derbyshire, Litchurch Lane, I believe it's called. There was some controversy a while back when the Thameslink train contract was awarded to Siemens. There was talk about Bombardier having to close down in Derbyshire. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore with all the Aventura orders. I think they've actually saved themselves. There is obviously the possibility of they'll be in trouble again once the Aventura orders are completed, but so long as there's a market, you never know. They'll be going for years to come still. To put a number on things, there are currently 5,700 minimum new vehicles on order for the UK rail industry. That's not trains, that's vehicles. So, a four-car train, that's 4 units, essentially. 4 units, 1 train. I mean, that's a lot of trains. To summarise very quickly, there's the Intercity Express program, or the Intercity Express trains as they're now called. So they're the class 800s, 801s and 802s. I think there are some 803s as well, I'm not sure. I might have made that up. There's the AT300s, which are also designed by Hitachi. They're currently being built for ScotRail. They're the 385s, I think. They're the new electric trains that are going to operate between Glasgow and Edinburgh. I know that much. I think they're the 385s. There's also 380s, which I think are also new. Or they were new at the time. I think they were built for the Glasgow Airport rail link that never happened. But yeah, so they're being built, the IETs and the AT300s. There's also express trains being built for TransPennine Express. Some of them are Mark V coaches, carriages with locomotive hauled. Some are 802s. And I'll explain the difference between the 800s, the 801s and the 802s in just a second. And there are also new electric and diesel trains being built by CAF, I think you could say CAF, who are also providing new trains for West Midlands and London North Western. I always forget the name. It was so much easier when it was just London Midland, but now they've split it into 2. I always managed to remember one of them and forget the other, which is really frustrating. Northern are also having new trains built by CAF. I'm just going to call them CAF from now on until someone tells me not to. And as I said, there are Aventuras going to London North Western and also West Midland Railways again. I forgot. London Overground is getting some new Aventuras. Great Northern is getting some more Desiro Cities, and I think they're also getting Aventuras. I know there's a Class 717 which is going to be operating on the Moorgate branch. and I'm sure that they are Desiro cities, so they're of the same type as the Class 700s. And I'm not sure how that works actually, because I'm sure the 313s that currently operate there, they are the only trains that can operate there because you need a low clearance because of the tunnel clearance that the trains run through between Drayton Park and Moorgate. I'm sure there was something about the clearance, which is why the 313s were built, because they had a lower ceiling than most trains of that design. I might have made that up, or I might have misinterpreted it again, because that does happen. IETs, let's talk about the in-city express trains. So there are three types, as I've already said. There's the Class 800s, which are bi-mode, so they have the front and rear carriages from each train. So there's 5-car trains and there are 9-car trains. The front and rear have pantographs, and they are the ones that are powered by the overhead wires. And then in the 5-car trains, the 3 middle carriages, or the trailer cars, although they're not technically trailer cars in this case, because they've all got diesel generator blocks underneath. Each one produces, I think it's 750. Hang on, you're going to hear some pages turning here as I quickly look this up. I believe it's 750 horsepower. Yes, it is. 750 horsepower. And they exist in the 2nd and 4th coaches. That's correct. And there is also a generator. Alright, hang on. I need to interpret this because it's a bit complicated. So the front and rear have got pantographs, and that's where the electric traction goes. The 2nd and 4th in a 5-coach unit has 750 horsepower engines that supply hotel power, according to this, which is air conditioning, heating, USB chargers, that sort of thing. And then the centre carriage does not supply hotel power, directly powers the train, but also produces only 750 horsepower. Now the 801s are the all-electric trains, so I don't think there are any going to Great Western, but Virgin East Coast are getting 801s, and they're the Azumas, essentially. So always remember, Azuma is a brand name that's only used by Virgin, so the 801s, even if there are other 801s built and they're operating on other parts of the network, they're not Azumas. Only the Virgin trains are called Azuma. And it's quite clever how they came up with the name, but I won't talk about that right now because it's a bit of a tangent from what I'm talking about now. And then you've got the 802s. Now the 802s are also bi-mode, I believe, but they've got more powerful diesel engines. They've got 940, I think it is, horsepower compared to 750. And again, I really wish I could just press Control F and look for the number and see if it comes up. I'm going to go with that as the number, 940 brake horsepower. Now the article that I've got all this information from compares the 800s to the old HSTs that used to run on the Great Western Main Line. And it's something that I would like to stress now as well, because at the moment the new trains are less powerful and lose speed, or don't have as much speed as the HSTs. But there's a very good reason for that, and it comes down to this. The new 800s are multiple unit trains. They are DEMU, I think would be their classification, diesel electric. I mean, bi-mode is the actual term, but even the diesel... In fact, I'm not sure if that's the case. I think the diesel engines actually power the train. They don't power generators which then power the train. And I think that's a big difference, and maybe they could have looked at that. But I'm not sure if you could fit that inside a carriage. The HSTs are not multiple unit trains. They are locomotive hauled trains, and that's the big difference. So the fact is this: Hitachi have managed to design and build a train. Currently, the 5-car 800s currently have an equivalent or slightly less power output than an HST, which is in a 2+8 formation. So to put that in context, that's 2 locomotives, 2 43s on either end, and then 8 carriages in the middle. So yes, the HSTs are bigger, and they're longer, and they're slightly more powerful, but the thing is with the 800s is every single carriage can, or every single unit can hold passengers. Whereas with the HST, the front and the back, they are locomotives. You can't put people in the locomotives. Also, you have a massive engine in those M4J3FFR135s because there's masses of room for massive engines within those units. However, when the 800s run on electric power, so when they're getting power from the overhead wires, they are rapid. They are much, much faster. And also, actually, to be fair, in diesel mode, they are also faster at pulling away than HSTs. So one of the things I found quite interesting was the article I'm reading, they do timings of trains at certain points along the line. It tends to be at mileposts, but some mileposts are missing now, so they do it from other landmarks. And there's a lot of instances where the 800s are travelling at a lower speed than the HSTs would at that point, but have reached that point a few minutes earlier than the HSTs would because they had a quicker acceleration. And I think that's something to remember. There's also the fact that if you couple two, actually I think it is when you couple two 5-car units together, the power output is the same as an HST. I think that's what I should have said. So it's 10 by 10 is the comparison. Again, I'm trying to go from memory here, which is not the best way of doing things. Let me get my train of thought back, and if you pardon the pun, of course. So yeah, the 800s are, as a 5-car unit, they are less powerful than an HST. However, they also weigh less, and therefore the power to weight ratio is about the same. The 10-car, so when you couple two 5 units together, the power is the same as an HST. Power to weight is also greater, I believe, than an HST, and there's more passenger room. The 9 cars, I can't remember the exact ratio of, I think it is still front and back, are the electric ones. Maybe the one in the middle as well, just for good measure, but don't hold me to that. And then the diesel engines will be in roughly the same locations. So overall, the 800s, they've not had the best introduction. I think there were a few breakdowns on the day that they were to be introduced. And even now, there's people not 100% happy with the configuration of the trains. So the first class, it used to be, the first class on an HST was at the buffer end of Paddington. So if you're heading down towards the west country, I'm really losing my words now. If you're heading down towards the west country, the first class would be at the back of the train. If you're heading towards Paddington, the first class would be at the front of the train. And that was so when you got on the train at Paddington, you didn't have to walk right the way down the length of the train to get to first class. With the new trains, first class is in the centre 4 coaches of the train. So if you've got two 5-car units coupled together, it's the non-Paddington end of the first 5 coaches, and then the Paddington end of the second 5 coaches. I'm really doing a bad job of explaining this. Essentially, you imagine two 5-car units coupled together. The two front ends that are coupled, that's first class, and then the 2 carriages outside of those are also first class. And then there's the whole issue of you can't walk from between one unit and the other because there's no corridor connections and things like that. Now the 803s are more powerful versions of the 800s. Sorry, the 802s are more powerful versions of the 800s. They are designed to run on the West of England lines and along the sea front at Dawlish and places like that. The engines, I think it is, there are certain components that have been moved from the bottom of the train to the roof, so that when they run along the seawall, seawater won't interfere with the components, which is what's currently happening with the Voyagers and the Super Voyagers of cross country that run along that section. There's a lot of complications to do with salt water getting into the bogies and things like that. So obviously you can't move the wheels, but certain things like the traction motors and stuff, a lot of that has been moved up onto the roof away from the water. They've also got bigger fuel tanks because more powerful engines means more fuel used. And there is talk, but I think this is happening now, that some of the 800s will also be converted to have the same power output as the 802s, and also the larger fuel tanks. So in theory, the trains will get better. That's the thing. And I mean, that's something you've got to remember as well, is yes, the Javelins have existed in this country for a long time, and I think the 801s, the transition into those will be a lot more seamless, because very similar technology between the Javelins and the 801s. But the 800s and the 802s are brand new. You know, the technology within them is brand new. Apart from testing once units have been completed, there's no real experience testing going on of this type of train, so there's going to be teething problems. Me personally, I don't mind that kind of thing. I mean, I haven't had to travel anywhere where one of my trains has been cancelled because of that, so it's very easy for me to say. But I do genuinely think that they will get better. Of course they will get better. And at the moment, the teething problems could have been a lot worse. A lot worse. So, you know, again, it's very easy for me to say, but I don't think there's too much to complain about. I think GWR have done a pretty good job of transitioning into the new trains. My only disappointment, really, is the length of these trains, and perhaps a little bit with the 800's power output, because it doesn't sound like much. Even when you compare it to an HST and realise they're the same, it doesn't sound like much. And the other thing, then, as I say, the capacity. 5-car trains. The Javelins are 6-car trains. At the moment, in and around London, platforms are being extended, particularly on Thameslink and also Greater Anglia, to support 12-car trains, which is 2 Javelins coupled together, essentially. But if you look at the new Thameslink trains, the 700s, they come in 8-car versions and 12-car versions. So the maximum length of a passenger train in England, essentially, apart from the Caledonian Sleeper, which is 16 carriages. That's always a bit of a hot point when there's work on the West Coast Main Line and the Caledonian Sleeper has to be diverted onto the East Coast Main Line. People always ask, well, why doesn't it just go from King's Cross? Why does it still go from Euston? And the answer is very simply, there are no platforms at King's Cross long enough for a 16-car train, so it has to leave Euston still, and then it goes along the North London line and then up onto the East Coast Main Line that way. So imagine you're waiting for an overground train one night and a Caledonian Sleeper goes past. That'd be quite a sight. Anyway, 5-car trains doesn't sound like long enough for me. 9-car trains sounds a lot better. And at the moment it is just 5-car trains that are being delivered. The 9 cars are coming along a little bit later. And for those of you wondering, the Virgin trains, the Zoomers, they will be joining the network from the start of next year, I think it is. Late this year, start of next year. And then hopefully we can you know, experience Britain's main lines as they're meant to be experienced, in the quiet comfort of a speeding train. There is also the issue of what's happening to, not the HSTs, because I think I have already explained what's happening to the HSTs. So currently the ones that are operating on GWR, they're retaining some of them. I think it's 17 sets are being retained by GWR, but they're being shortened into 2+5. So 2 43s and 5 carriages in the middle. And they'll operate services to and from Oxford and up that way. Also down towards Honeybourne along the Cotswold line. More importantly, in and around Bristol. And also on services to Swansea, I think it is. They're basically replacing the 165s and the 166s with HSTs. A bit like what ScotRail are doing. They're replacing some of their 170s with faster trains, the HSTs. That being said, the trains that are not being used currently by GWR, or will not be used once the new IETs are in place, a lot of them have been cascaded to East Midlands trains already. Some are also going up to ScotRail to be used for the ScotRail Intercity service, and the rest, I think that is all of them. I think that is all of them. So East Midlands trains have inherited the majority of the HSTs. Grand Central have also just replaced their HSTs with the Class 180s that are being displaced by the IETs at GWR. So their HSTs have also gone to East Midlands trains. Hull trains have also inherited some 180s, and I think that's it for them. The 225s, the Intercity 225s, I don't actually know what's happening to them. Again, I think Virgin are retaining some of them to be used on London to Leeds and London to Edinburgh routes. But the rest of them, I think, are just going to be put into storage or scrapped, which again is a bit of a shame. Also the shame with the HST, because the engines on a lot of them were replaced relatively recently, within the last few years. So I think that's why they're continuing to be cascaded around the country, is because there's still a lot of operational lifetime left within the HSTs. But yeah, I think I've waffled a lot about trains. A lot. You'll have to bear with me when I'm reciting facts, because if I don't have them written down somewhere in front of me, I do tend to go by memory, and I do tend to skip things or forget things or merge things together, so it becomes factually incorrect. My catchphrase at the moment is someone will always correct me, and I'm sure that will happen now. There's always someone in the comments who has to set me straight when I say the wrong thing. Don't necessarily mind as long as it's done appropriately. But yeah, one day within the next 12 months I would very much like to jump on one of these new trains and experience them firsthand. Same with Crossrail, same with the London Overground trains, and just see what all the hoo-ha's about, and see if they're actually worth the hype that everyone seems to be giving them. Personally, I'm not a fan of the Adventurers. I think they look really ugly. I think a very good analogy I've used before is if someone took, is it Eve from WALL-E, took her head and shoved it onto the front of an Electrostar. That's pretty much what the Class 345s look like. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. But anyway, you've seen me build this third rail network. Bahecity is now connected to Guard City, and more importantly to the rest of the network. So eventually we will have trains between Guard City and Bahecity. On which line, I don't know, because right now, yes, we can run them between GSMA and Bahecity Central, but I think that line is quite saturated already, so we will have to see about that. But yeah, this episode is done. Next episode, and again I'm just making sure I've got this correct. Looks like I've got this correct. So next episode we'll be building the South Coast route between Bahecity and Plenborough-Tarina, which, I mean, that was a lot of fun to build that line. And the trains that I've got running on both the line you've just seen me build and the line that I'm going to build next episode, they're brand new trains, which could end up being replaced. More on that a little bit later on in this this series, within the next couple of episodes anyway. But until then, guys, thank you very much for watching. Once again, I do apologise for my mismatch of facts and umming and ahhing my way through that episode. Hopefully the music will ease that pain for you. But yes, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you're enjoying the series. Drop some comments down below with ideas for future episodes. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. And until next time, I will see you soon.